It's time for Windows Weekly, and as we go to press, breaking news about OneDrive, Clutter, and Sway. And yes, we'll talk about a very surprising development in the .NET space. It's all coming up next on Windows Weekly.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Windows Weekly is provided by CacheFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Windows Weekly with Paul Thurrott and Mary Jo Foley, episode 388, recorded November 12th, 2014, Clutter and Sway. Windows Weekly is brought to you by ITProTV. A good IT pro is always learning, and ITProTV is the resource to keep your skills and knowledge up to date. ITProTV offers engaging courses streamed to your Roku, computer, or mobile device. For 30% off the lifetime of your account, go to itpro.tv/WW and use the code WW30. And by Citrix ShareFile. Enhance your workflow. Send files of almost any size easily and securely with Citrix ShareFile. Try it today for a 30-day free trial. Visit sharefile.com, click the microphone, and enter Windows. And by NatureBox. NatureBox ships great-tasting snacks right to your door. Start snacking smarter with a wholesome, delicious treat like agave citrus granola. Oh, baby! To get your complimentary NatureBox sampler, visit naturebox.com/twit. That's naturebox.com/twit. It's time for Windows Weekly, the show that covers all of the Microsoft news in obsessive detail. And, of course, no one better to do that than Mary Jo Foley. She's from ZDNet's All About Microsoft blog. Hello, Mary Jo.
Hello, Leo.
She is suspended above One World Trade Center in a window washer's little crane there thing.
Yep, that's where I am.
Can you see that out your window?
No, I can see the Empire State, not the World Trade.
Yeah. Those window washers actually just sit on the ledge and hang out, I think.
Yeah.
It's an older building. Paul Thurrott is also here. He is the maître d', the major domo, the guy in charge at the super site for Windows, winsupersite.com. He's also the author of like 8,000 books. Hello, Paul. And our show today is entitled Metro Schmetro. I don't know.
We'll have to explain why.
You might have to explain that.
That's actually a Mary Jo Foley quote.
It is.
So this is this just happened, and I think it's well. I need you guys to explain, but I think it's big news.
It is.
What happened?
Yes.
Well, this little spacecraft landed on a comet.
That was awesome. I got up at the crack of dawn, 8 a.m. to watch that.
And then you read the book 2031: A Space Odyssey 3 or whatever.
Did they mention comet landing in that?
Yeah. I just reread all those books. Anyway.
It
Sorry,
was
Mary
cool
Jo,
to
really
see
happened?
that. It was really great. And I guess the latest is that the harpoons may not have fired, and it's a little wobbly. But at least they're getting data. The first time a human craft has landed on a comet, traveling at 35,000 kilometers a second, or a mile, or a minute, or whatever. It's fast.
It's like the dog finally caught the little chuck wagon in those
I know.
commercials.
10 years.
From the 70s. Yeah.
They launched it 10 years ago.
Oh, wow. Did they really? Wow.
Imagine, aiming a bullet at something, across the solar system.
Yeah.
It's incredible. And hitting it.
It's a perfect analogy for what happened today in New York.
What did happen today in New York?
Microsoft launched .NET into open source and landed it on a comet.
Wait a minute.
And they planted a Linux flag on one side and a Mac flag on the other.
Okay, now we know Nadella's crazy. First, he starts giving away Office on iPad.
Yep.
And now he open sources one of the.
Who knew that this guy was really like a fifth column type?
He's actually works for Red Hat. Who
he still
knew?
works for Sun Microsystems.
Yeah. So he open sourced one of the crown jewels of the Microsoft software kingdom.
Right. So just to make it really clear what happened, they open sourced what's called the .NET server side stack. So that's not all of .NET. That's not things like WPF, the Windows Presentation Foundation, or WinForms. I think there's probably some networking pieces that is not included, but it's everything for .NET on the server is now going to be open sourced under the MIT open source license. Yeah,
Here's
that's
how
huge.
you might think of this, by the way. It's sort of like Microsoft's version of Java, the part of Java that is actually still in use on the server side. Is that fair?
Yeah,
roughly
I'd say that's fair.
And probably the other stuff they can't give away because it has encumbered stuff in there that they can't open source. I mean, there's...
See, I think you're onto something. I actually think this is not the first step, by the way. This is like the second step, but this is a step down a road toward, yes, .NET being truly cross-platform in every sense.
Right.
And what would be the advantage? What's the strategic reason to do that?
Volume.
Yeah.
We're giving it away, but we'll make it up in volume.
Yeah. It's also to attract developers who right now say, you know what, .NET's a Windows thing. And I don't really want to write for Windows. I want to write for Android. I want to write for iOS, right?
I want to
.NET is actually worse than a Windows thing. It's a Windows thing pre-Metro. It's .NET is perceived as, well, it's ASP.NET is on the server, obviously, but you know, in the client sense, .NET is kind of a okay, I'm actually speaking with my foot in my mouth a little bit. I mean, obviously WPF is still somewhat of a big deal, but Microsoft was sort of seen moving past .NET in some ways. And I think there's going to be a recalibration of that on the client as well. I think this is just a first step, and I think .NET becomes a much bigger thing as a result. Which is amazing.
For those of us listening who don't really kind of know what .NET is, what does that represent? What does it mean?
I know. They call it a
programming
programming
language. Is
a
it
programming framework.
It's a framework.
More than a language.
Yeah, it's a
So the
runtime
language would
engine.
be-
It's a framework.
The language would be various, probably mostly C#. Microsoft.
so there's
actually, the beauty of
languages.
it is it can be anything.
It could be anything. It's language independent.
Right.
And
there's
you
different
use it-
languages. There's
Honestly,
things
think
called
of Java.
like
That's the easiest way to think of it.
it is. It
Well,
is like
Java's
there's
a
a
language.
Nope, but Java's also
it's
a runtime.
also a programming
It's
platform
a runtime
too.
environment.
Right.
So
So,
is-
in .NET, like when you look at a stack diagram of .NET, there's things on the bottom. First, you have like the operating system layer. Then you have things like base class libraries, and you have the core CLR and the CLR, the common language runtime. And you have all these levels on top that are meant to abstract programmers from having to get down into the base, like down to the metal when they program. How's that?
That's good.
That's kind of
So you don't write in .NET, but you write to .NET.
Yeah, sure.
Right.
Is that right?
Right. You use programming languages of many kinds to write to .NET, and you develop .NET applications, right?
All right.
Yeah, there you go. There's the stack.
Whoops, here's the stack, and I made it too big now, so let me go back.
That's good. It's good to look at an architectural
Where
diagram.
did that come from?
This is
Yeah,
Wikipedia.
but what's the originator of that graphic?
Oh, that's a good question.
Because I'm not sure. The way that stacks up is not really correct.
This is circa 2005. So this is
Yeah, but this is
They're more recent versions, but that's kind of how it looks, right? I mean,
so the
there's
bottom part is the common language runtime. That would be the equivalent of a Java runtime.
no, but
Well, above that is the framework class library. That's what programmers would use. That's
don't think
almost an
this is
API.
accurate.
Okay.
yeah, there's more recent .NET.
This is
diagram.
I'll
not-
find something more recent.
this is not accurate.
All right.
It
There's,
doesn't matter.
like-
The bottom part of that stack was accurate, and that's the important thing.
So you have a runtime, which runs on what hardware? Any hardware.
Well, now that they're porting .NET to Linux and they're porting it to Mac OS X, it will be able to run on other operating systems.
It has
but that
always
is
Really,
Go
I
Oh,
ahead.
didn't really say this, but I mean, Mary Jo said earlier, this is like the server core, the core server parts of .NET. I mean, when you say Linux and OS 10, I think we're talking about the server.
Yeah, and the
servers.
reason OS 10 is in there is because a lot of developers use that as their development machine. So that's why they're porting it also to OS X, not because OS X is such a big server operating system. It's more for development purposes that they're doing that.
Yes.
But yeah, that's huge because everybody was wondering, as Microsoft goes more cross-platform, would they take the ultimate step and actually make .NET cross-platform? I mean, we've seen them take Office cross-platform and all kinds of applications cross-platform. But what about the actual core, like the guts of .NET? And this is what they're going to do with Xamarin. Xamarin's going to work with them on this.
So Xamarin was an open source project originally called Mono that put .NET in an open source form, and it was, I guess, an interface to .NET for Linux. But it now is more widely used as a cross-platform framework. It's used for instance, app development on iOS and Android. You write in Xamarin, and it runs on everything. So, and that's Miguel de Casa. And we had talked about Miguel de Casa and Xamarin becoming part of Microsoft. Never did happen. Yeah. But maybe this is what this was all about, which was some sort of alliance.
This in some ways may. I mean, I think the .NET stuff would have happened anyway. But if you look at how they aligned with Xamarin as part of this release, I think that was the plan B. Because Mary Jo as well, I'm sure would say that very clearly Microsoft went after Xamarin and was rebuked in some way, and so this is the next best thing. Their partnership that comes out as part of this.
Yeah, and maybe it's the best of all worlds not to own them in a way, because now they're in this really tight partnership with them. They're going to help them port .NET to other platforms. And Miguel and his team, they always wanted Microsoft to open source .NET. They had been after them for years.
This really makes the open source community more happy because they trust Miguel de Casa, and so I think this is a great way to do it. If you acquire them, it's a little different, but this way, tight partnership, the open source developers can say, oh, well, we know Miguel. I don't know. I think this is really interesting. I'm still trying to get my head around what it means.
Yeah, it's
there's so much to this. It's hard to even keep straight.
Right. This is definitely big. They actually, if you look back,
this makes it all clear.
I was desperate to find a chart.
This makes it all crystal clear.
We're seeing worse and worse.
The place where the diagrams go south is when the Metro environment comes along. Because the Metro environment is not actually managed code, strictly speaking, and it's kind of like it's something very similar.
Does it sit? But it sits to the side.
It sits to the side, I think is how I would describe it. The first chart you would put up, if you think about that as a series of dependencies, was not true, but it doesn't matter. The point is simply that .NET is a platform that includes a runtime engine, a runtime environment. It includes a framework for developers. Various frameworks. It's
garbage
a big
collector, just-in-time compiler. Yeah, there's tons of parts.
Language independent.
So it's basically okay. So part of it is like the Java runtime. Part of it is like kind of Ruby on Rails, a framework which you can install, which gives you the scaffolding for a full web application. Actually, it doesn't have to be web, right? It could be written to the hardware. Yeah, because you've got this runtime. It could be on.
.NET originally was something that was going to be on Windows. It was at one time seen as even though obviously it uses Win32 under the covers, it was seen as a.
Every one of these diagrams, I'm like, oh.
These are all terrible. I don't know where you're coming up with these.
I don't. That one is a no.
I think that one is like how you determine whether a loan is valid at the bank.
I know. I think so.
Wait a minute. No. I've got it here. This is definitely. I'm always in a. Oh, that's the same one. Let's find a better one here. I don't know. Okay, you can see though this is somewhat complicated. So if you're sitting at home going, "What the hell?" The only people who know what this is are .NET programmers.
Right.
And what do they say?
They are pretty darn happy as a general group today. Although, of course, there are some who said, "Oh, I liked it better when .NET was all about Windows, and I don't want it to be all about Android and iOS too." Right. So there are people who are saying.
Somebody already said this in the chat room. The real asset of .NET is the developers. So if you can grow that pool, get more people involved writing .NET code, that's really good. So I saw on Twitter today, I don't know, I wish I'd written down who said this, that Microsoft doesn't want to own the boat. They want to own the ocean the boat floats in.
Wow.
So they're giving away the boats. And they're saying, as long as you're in our ocean, we don't care what you do. Does that make sense? I think that's kind of right.
That's interesting.
Think about it.
Sure.
It's deep. It's very profound. I think it was the Dalai Lama that said that, actually.
I'm not going to teach you how to fish. I'm going to teach you how to be the ocean.
Yeah.
Wait, what?
So that's the new Microsoft mission statement. No longer a computer.
Well, we've talked vaguely about this notion of these developer environments and how things like iOS and Xcode are difficult. Things like Eclipse and Android are terrible. And, the one thing that we've always had an advantage on the Microsoft side is Visual Studio and .NET and the frameworks. It's an amazing set of assets. And the dream, of course, would be to be able to use those tools to develop applications for Android or iOS or for Mac OS X even or whatever, Linux. And it seems like that's the road we're going down right now.
Although you did kind of raise this issue, is .NET really the old stuff and Metro and WPF?
Well, that's just on the client. In other words, Microsoft, and this is an artifact of history, but, with Windows 8 in particular, Microsoft took a step sideways. That team decided to reinvent everything. I think had Microsoft done things the traditional way they do things with Windows 8, the developer environment would have been an offshoot of Silverlight or WPF or whatever. It would have been managed code.NET, and that it wasn't is very strange and whatever, but they did what they did. And I think it's important that they're doing the server side stuff first, because that never changed. In the server, the people who write .NET code on the server, people who write .NET code to the cloud, that has never, there was no sidestep there. Well, actually, there was Silverlight, so maybe I should stop talking and start thinking. I don't know. It's very complicated, but I think this is setting the ship right, to keep using the nautical theme. And I think this is one that I think most developers on the Microsoft side would cheer.
Kind of, it's like the, what is it, the 7 blind men and the elephant? Well, .NET is depends on who's looking at it. Here's an example. This is on Microsoft's .NET documentation from Build. For consumers, for business managers, for IT professionals, for developers, these are all .NET resources, and it means different thing depending on what your point of view is.
I mean, from a user's perspective, .NET's something you don't really have to think about, other than every once in a while. You have to install it. You might say Windows Update. You might, you might. It's in Windows now. I mean, it's been in Windows for a long time. You don't really, I don't think that if you were to try to run or install an Adobe Air application for the very first time, or a Java application, you would be confronted by, oh, you got to install this other thing first. With .NET applications, that's really not the case anymore. It was, right, 10 years ago probably. But I mean, now it's pretty much just there in Windows. Right. In Windows, actually in Windows 8.1, for example, if you try to install Windows Essentials, it tells you that there's a .NET, I think it's .NET Framework version, whatever it is, 3.5.1 or something, that is a prerequisite. It installs it automatically, and then it goes through with the setup. And so I guess maybe that's the closest thing that we have on the Windows side to that kind of thing.
I've got another diagram that I think will make this all clear as a bell.
Nope. Nope, that's not it.
Yeah, no. Somebody should do a really simple .NET, updated .NET architectural diagram. Anybody out there? Somebody's going to be
like, Mary Jo, remember when Microsoft was talking about Windows 8 and they were trying to compare
remember those diagrams?
Yeah, those terrible diagrams. Even Microsoft's diagrams were wrong.
Yeah,
this is a Microsoft diagram. I hate to tell you.
Yeah, with Metro, I remember we were like, they were correcting their own diagrams. Different teams were coming up with diagrams that were different from other teams. Yeah, so it's not easy, but somebody is going to figure this out, and it's going to have like 3 boxes, and it'll be, here's .NET. Okay, there.
I don't think it's that simple.
Yeah, it's not really.
.NET is many things to many people. That's kind of part of it.
There have been so many offshoots of it now, WPF and Silverlight, the modern environment, whatever we're calling it, this Windows Store.
And I think to say it's like Java doesn't really quite do it either. It's much more elaborate than something like that. I don't know what you would.
Well, I don't know. At its core, it's like Java, though. I mean, it's the same kind of thing. I mean, Java, of course, is typically you write Java applications in Java. So there's like one language. .NET is language agnostic.
Right. And so it's a runtime that can handle many languages. It's a framework that developers can use to create.
Well, it shouldn't matter what language you use. You're creating some some unit of code, a component or whatever.
Right on.
Who cares what it's written?
Who cares? I don't care. I don't care. Goodness knows. So who cares? I don't know.
Yeah, but we can talk about some of the other things besides this was just like one of the announcements.
Yes,
today.
right.
Oh my God, there's more?
Oh, there were so many more. Yeah. So let's see. What else did they announce today? They announced that they're making available to testers a new, more complete preview of what they're now calling Visual Studio 2015. Okay. It used to be codenamed Visual Studio 14, even though it was coming in 2015. But now we have the real name, Visual Studio 2015, which comes with .NET 2015. Sorry, .NET 2015. They're making a preview of that available today. And that has a whole ton of features. And many of those features are geared toward helping people write applications wherever they want. They could be cloud apps, device apps, Windows apps for the desktop, Android, iOS. You can do it all with the next version of Visual Studio. And they also announced the new version of ASP.NET, which is now called ASP.NET 5. They announced a brand new SKU of Visual Studio called Visual Studio Community 2013. And if you've ever used the Express SKU of Visual Studio, which was their free SKU for hobbyists, this is the replacement for that. And what's cool about it is it's going to let you, if you're a shop of up to 5 employees, use Visual Studio for free, which is pretty nice. So here we go.
Great.
Yeah, well, and
so I could, or I'm a shop of 1 employee, I could do it.
You could, and you can develop even commercial apps using this community.
So it's
studio.
free for individual and small team
Visual Studio extensions, which previously required a paid version.
Well, that's neat. So this, thanks to the chat room, Insider in the chat room has sent me the definitive .NET diagram, and I think this is. Now, come on, Paul. Look, we even got Silverlight and WPF in there.
This is.
Okay, never mind. Who cares?
Okay.
I don't care.
One of our listeners, Araby, Rich B, says, here's the definition. .NET is a runtime. Languages plug in. Frameworks sit on top. Apps use all 3 parts. There you go.
Okay.
That's pretty good.
So the framework, .NET is not the framework.
It is actually the framework too, though.
Yeah.
Like when you see
please
diagrams.
explain how modern apps relate to .NET, because that's a little wormhole.
Yeah, there's a new programming model called WinRT that Microsoft introduced with Windows 8, right?
No.
And that's a different programming model.
Right. But I wonder, is that going to be deprecated, or is .NET being deprecated and given away because we want you to use the WinRT?
No, they're trying to let you use what you want, is the way I understand.
So you can reach that same endpoint either way.
Right. You're going to write 2 different kinds of apps. Right. You're going to write different types of apps depending on which one you use, right? Okay. 2 different runtimes, as Rich B says. 2 different runtimes, same languages. Yes, that is a great way to explain that.
Okay.
So they're trying to make it so that this isn't such a huge dichotomy. When they introduced Windows 8, it was like, here is WinRT, here is .NET, never the 2 shall meet. It was pretty separate, and the diagrams drew it very separately. Now the idea is, you know what, let's let developers use the tools and the languages they want to write for any platform. That's kind of the high-level goal now.
Another concern from the chat room. Oh, I just paid for my MSDN subscription so I could get VB and Studio and it's all free now.
Well,
if you're a single developer or a small team, I guess everything you need is free.
I haven't seen the full SKU chart that shows what you get with the new community versus ultimate versus this versus that. So I'm sure you're going to get more stuff for the paid versions. It's not going to be like, hey, all you need is free. It's kind of like Office, right? You can use Office Online for free if you only need a basic set of features. But if you want all the bells and whistles, you're going to still pay for Office.
Now I eagerly await the person who tweets you and says, you said that community was only going to be available when you're online.
I know. I'm trying to be. This stuff isn't so easy.
It's complicated.
I know.
Yeah.
Oh, and you know what? Here is another big surprise for me today, although it was a very small part of the announcement. Microsoft developed an emulator for Android.
Right.
This is just kind of like, okay, wait, Microsoft's now writing tools for Android. And they are making that part of the new Visual Studio 2015 preview that came out today. And the reason they did it was because they say that the emulators for Android right now are pretty terrible, and they thought they could make a better one. I'm sure there's more to it than that, but that's kind of the top level.
So the emulators for Android are terrible. That's true. But the emulators for Android are now available in Intel format as well, and which is how you run them on your PC, and how they're able to do this in Visual Studio because it's using Hyper-V, which is the same thing we use to run Windows Phone emulators or Windows Store app emulators. Yeah. And so it's actually a straightforward process. It's the reason we don't see an iOS emulator, because that's a completely different architecture, and for all we know, that's not even ever going to be allowed anyway.
It's not.
But
I asked them.
It's technically possible to do it.
They're not going to do an iOS emulator. They said, at least unless there's some crazy community demand for them to do one, they say no.
Xamarin might, though.
Well, I think on
I don't know if Xamarin
Xamarin
already does.
Yeah, but on a Mac, like you have to use a Mac.
Right.
Well, I see. No, they can't do an emulator.
You're still going to have Xcode
on Windows. No, you can't do an emulator on Windows.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, not license prevents you, not technology.
But if you're familiar with how the Windows Phone emulators or the Windows Store app emulators work in Visual Studio today, it looks exactly the same. It's very natural. it's a little strange.
So how does this change the landscape? What is the impact of something like this?
You know, I saw a few people tweet this. I think Dr. Pizza and some others were saying, if Microsoft had done this, what they did today 10 years ago, maybe Java never would have taken off.
Exactly.
Right. Okay.
Exactly.
So that's how it changes the landscape. It kind of is going back and saying, you know what, we probably should have done this before, but we're doing it now. So, hey, here you go, guys. We want you to develop using whatever environment, whatever operating system tools you want, but we want to be your development interface.
I do know in the app space, Xamarin is for anybody who needs to do cross-platform is probably one of the premier choices, if not the premier choice, for making native-ish apps cross-platform.
Yeah. Well, actually, you know, by the way, the very notion of native apps has taken a back seat of sorts ever since Java came out, because the runtime engine on Android, not on iOS actually, but a lot of these things are you're just kind of plugging in a runtime engine. I mean,
this was always an issue with Java, and they did try to solve this with Swing and try to make it look more native. But, you know, of course, everybody's
this is the .NET model, too. I mean, it really is. So
you try to have
Silverlight apps on Windows Phone, whatever.
You try to have a presentation foundation that's operating system specific. And then, I mean, this is good news, and I think it's a smart thing for Microsoft to do. It is a continued step in this devices and services direction, I think, right?
Right.
Yep.
This is a Satya Nadella. This has got Satya all over it.
Although it did, you know, it's funny because this is the second step along this path. They took a first step in April when they announced the .NET Foundation, and they said, hey, we're going to be open sourcing a bunch of .NET stuff. And when I asked them who came up with that, it was under Ballmer's administration that happened. And he was the one who greenlighted it and said, you know what, we need to do this. So it's happening with Satya being the one announcing it, but it started years ago, like at least 3 years ago.
It's almost like you're saying that mobile first, cloud first is not different from devices and services. It's almost like you're saying.
No, I think it is different. I think it's a little different. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Ballmer is not going to get the credit he deserves for having done all this.
But he did. But no, you're going to give him the credit right now.
I am going to give it to him.
Let the word go forth from this podcast. Ballmer deserves the credit.
Right. I want him to get me seats to the next game he plays here in New York. Right. So I'll just throw that out there, Steve.
I kind of feel like Steve really has moved on.
Yeah, he totally has moved on.
Yeah, he doesn't care. Go ahead, let Satya get the credit. I don't care.
Right. He's the largest shareholder now in Microsoft. Yeah. He's like, you know what? I care to the extent it's my money.
Just do right with the company so I can make more money.
Yeah.
Right.
I do feel like that this is an important... Had Microsoft done this without Xamarin, it would have been bad news for Xamarin. But the fact that they're part of this it makes it easier for everybody involved, I think.
Yeah, I tried this. I read the Xamarin, Mike and Miguel, in fact, wrote a blog post explaining how this was going to change things for them going forward. And I read it over a couple of times, and I actually am still a little confused how this works out for them. They were pretty much the choice now, and now it's a little bit of a gray area. But I think the interesting thing that came out on the Xamarin side was that they're going to make a version of what they do available for free, which today Xamarin's actually fairly expensive. It's not something an individual can get into inexpensively, if I'm not mistaken. But I think as part of this,
they have a hobbyist license that's free. Xamarin does, and they have a student license that they just announced last week was free. But yeah, I think they're going to make more of what they do available and tied in with .NET, so that if you do use their free version, you're going to be able to access .NET now. Plus, Xamarin has had to kind of build around Microsoft all these years, right? They had to do all the work that Microsoft wasn't giving them, and they put .NET into open source in a way, right? So now they can go back and take Microsoft's actual .NET code that they're making open source and put that back into their product and be using the actual .NET code. Right.
It'd be kind of. This is going to be interesting. Yeah. I assume these guys are working together on some of this stuff.
They are. They're working hand in hand, they say. And you would assume so. Yeah, Nat Friedman was at the event today, who's the head of Xamarin now, the CEO. Mm-hmm. And he was on stage with Soma Somasegar, who runs developer division. And they were talking like, yeah, this is it. We're working together. We're going to work on the porting together. Xamarin's going to be even more tightly integrated into Visual Studio. So they have a very, very close partnership right now.
What do you think this does to WinRT as a platform?
I think honestly, we're going to know more at Build, right, in April.
Yeah, but do you really think it impacts it? I mean, it's just the way that you write to the client, I just don't see them backing away from it.
I don't either. I totally don't see them backing away from WinRT. No, they are moving full steam ahead with that, and they're trying to make it so that WinRT on phones and on PCs are much tighter and more alike, so that you can write what they call universal apps and they can work on both platforms. That's definitely still the main direction. But I feel like what they're doing is they're going back and they're saying to the .NET developers who they basically shunned for a very large part with Windows 8. They're going back and saying to them, guys, we realize we should have brought you into the camp all along. We want to make it really easy for you because we know you are our bread and butter, and we want to bring you along with us as we move forward. So we're gonna keep advancing the .NET platform. Yeah.
I don't think this is the first time we've said this, but the next several months are going to be really interesting.
Yep.
Yep.
That's the equivalent of the stand-up reporters. Will this change things? Only time will tell.
I know. Sometimes you have to say that.
This is going to change things.
Yes.
Yeah.
The next few months will be interesting.
Yeah. And we're going to hear more about WinRT, the development platform, at Build, like we said, and also probably in early 2015 when we see the next the consumer preview of Windows 10 and the preview that's going to come out for Windows Phone and tablets. So I think we're seeing things revealed in different parts, right? Like we're seeing first the .NET piece, and we'll hear more about the WinRT piece. So I'm glad they didn't actually tell us more about that today because there were enough announcements today.
Yeah. It was already confusing enough, yeah.
It was.
All right, let's take a break. By the way, the window washers are safe. You'll be glad to know, Mary Jo. Yeah.
Ooh,
how do you rescue window washers on a?
It's funny because they're showing the picture, and I don't see firemen coming up a ladder. I think what they did is they opened the window and they said, "Come on, get in quick," and then they closed the
Actually,
window.
that is how they did it. Yeah.
What else are you going to do? You're not going to climb up or climb down. Spider-Man would have. Maybe even Tom Cruise. But I think the NYPD just opened the window.
Yeah.
Our show today brought to you by ITProTV. This is an exciting time to be in IT. And if you are an IT professional, keeping up probably could be, you listen to this and you go, oh, I got more to learn. But fortunately, there's an easy and fun way to do it. That's ITProTV. A good IT professional is always learning. And I know most of the people who listen to this show, if you're not already IT professionals, have the skills, the chops to do it, and maybe you'd like to do it for a living. This is a great way to get the certs that'll make it easier to get a job. ITProTV is a video network, just kind of like ours, but devoted entirely to the world of information technology. Hundreds of hours of content are actually, let me go to the ITProTV site and log into my account. Hundreds of hours of courses are there already. And they're putting up new ones all the time, 30 hours a week, kind of like us. They're always recording, always doing new stuff. The courses are very wide-ranging, everything from, of course, lots of Microsoft stuff, including the Microsoft certs, MCSA, MCSE. I could just go to the course library at ITPro.tv, and you can see all the stuff they've got. They've got Apple stuff now. CompTIA, that's the A+ cert for the IT guy. Net Plus, Security Plus, CASP, Strata, Linux Plus, and Cloud Plus. MCSA, they are working on a new MCSE unit. This is the other thing. There's always new stuff coming all the time. They just released their MCSA SQL Server unit. Cisco. If you're into security, the ISC squared certs are fabulous. And their security guy teaching those ISC squared certs, I can't remember his name. He's huge. He's the guy. And of course, Don and Tim are fun and easy, and they're always on the air. Let me just log in and go to the on-the-air portion. You can see them right now, and just like us. They're doing, looks like Objective, was it Objective-C? No, because it's in Windows. Looks a little bit like the old Screensaver Studio, doesn't it? When you get the ITProTV subscription, you get the Measure Up practice exams. $79 value, free with a subscription. You pay once a month, a low fee that includes daily updates, new features, easy cancellation. They're very good about that. They understand, maybe you got the cert and you're done. Although I'll tell you, stay tuned because I got a really great deal for those of you who stick around. It's, I'll tell you, when you add it up, it's a lot less than going to an IT boot camp or a technical school. Normally $57 a month, $570 for an entire year, but we have a special offer. They are big fans of Twit, big fans of Paul and Mary Jo Foley. They want to give you a deal. So if you go to itpro.tv/WW and you use the code WW30, you're going to get 30% off your subscription for the lifetime of your account. Now it's less than $40 a month or $3.99 for the entire year. This is a fantastic deal. itpro.tv/WW. The offer code is WW30. I don't know if you were you watching Screensavers yesterday when I fired up the IT Pro Lab. Let me see if I'm still logged in. This is so awesome. If you have an HTML5 compatible browser, I mean Chrome or pretty much anything, you can literally go in there. Here's the MCSA Windows 8 Lab. And you don't need to have a Windows machine or a server or anything else. Watch. I'm going to actually be using a virtualized Windows server and 3 virtual machines so I can have clients and servers. I can screw it up, which I always do, but I could still get going and do it. And what a great way to learn. I mean, I'm telling you, you could do this all right now and at an incredible cost. Here's the new thing. Because they're celebrating 1 year of great success. Yeah, their first anniversary. There it is. I got Windows Server running right here, 2012 R2. Look at that. It's live. I can do everything. And, of course, I've got all the administrative tools. I could set up clients. So sweet. I'm on a Mac. So sweet. Once you reach your 13th month to celebrate their anniversary, so if you get a year subscription and you get to month 13, your subscription rate will go down even more, bringing your cost to $24.95 a month. What? That's $249 for the entire year. Great guys. Say hi to Tim and Don, itpro.tv/WW. And don't forget to use the offer code WW30 to save 30% for the lifetime of your subscription. And if you keep, you can watch it on your Roku. I think you just have it running all the time. If it's not Twit, it should be ITProTV. All right, ladies and gentlemen, back we go to Mary Jo, Paul Thurrott, Windows Weekly. Big day for Windows Weekly. Central issue of the day with a new platform-neutral Windows.
Mary Jo took her stick and she just beat the hell out of a hornet's nest today.
Why bother with Windows?
Then she ran away,
all?
leaving me standing there to get stung.
No, not true.
Who cares about Windows? We're platform agnostic. We're not the boat, we're the ocean. Discuss.
Okay.
I feel like I'm drowning, Leo.
Ah!
So I've been hearing from a lot of my readers a question that I thought I knew the answer to, but then when I went to answer it, I realized I did not. The question is, now that Microsoft is a platform neutral company and they're introducing things for iOS and Android just as much, if not more quickly than they are for Windows and Windows Phone, why should I use Windows anymore? And I thought, oh, I know the answer. And then I was like, nope, I don't know the answer. In fact, I can't defend that. I don't know what. If somebody came to me today and said, should I get a Windows PC? Should I get a Windows tablet? Should I get a Windows Phone? I don't think I could say definitively, like I felt I could before, yes. And I talked to some people I knew at Microsoft and I said, can you defend Windows right now? Like what, why should somebody use a Windows Phone right now? I mean, I'm on, as I've said a million times on the show, I'm using an Icon, the flagship phone on Verizon. I still don't have Windows Phone 8.1 that came out months and months ago. And even if I did have it, I would still be missing some features that are available on things like the iPhone 6. So I just threw it out there and I said, you know what? I don't know what the answer is. I don't even know if Satya Nadella could defend Windows right now.
Well, don't you think all this is in a way saying it's not capitulation, but it's recognizing that we are not a monopoly and saying, what is the smart strategy here? Well, we'll continue to offer our platforms, but wouldn't the smart strategy be to make sure that if somebody chooses a different platform, they still live within our universe? The only catch is what you just mentioned, which they're not keeping Windows Phone up to date.
Yeah. And
it needs to have parity, or this doesn't make any sense.
Exactly. It can't be the last platform, although that's what it is right now, right?
That's what's weird.
Right. Well, and for years we heard Microsoft say, you know what, don't worry, it's always going to be first and best on Windows.
Not true.
And right now it's last and not best on Windows. And I think this could change next year when they do Windows 10. And maybe we'll even have a better sense of it by the time there's the consumer preview in early 2015. But for right now, the holiday season of 2014, with no new flagship phones coming, with Windows being in preview, Windows 10 in preview, but not in final, no touch Office preview yet for Windows. I don't know. It's a tough time, right? Tough time to be somebody who's trying to defend Windows.
I'm not really, but I mean, Office is obviously the latest round of this kind of, analysis and dread is because of the Office for Office for iPhone apps, right, and Office for Android, which follow Office for iPad, which came out last March or this past March. But I mean, I look at the last year or so with Microsoft's mobile app releases on other platforms, and what I see for the most part is Microsoft just catching up because they really didn't have a great collection of apps on iOS or Android before that, and so a lot of this stuff is just catch up. I mean, Windows Phone had the Office Hub in the very first release of Windows Phone 4 years ago. So, I mean, that stuff has come out more recently on iOS and Android, but
it's better on iOS and Android.
Well, this week it is. I mean, it's
week.
Actually not better on Android phones. It's exactly the same. And until last week, it was exactly the same on iPhone. But, I mean, I think pragmatically they have to support those platforms because more people use them,
I understand that.
But the symbolism is also important. And you need to send a signal to Windows Phone users. You're not going to, I mean, even just say, hey, we know that we did this first for iOS, but don't worry, it's coming.
Well, okay, but I mean, so earlier today I was arguing with somebody on Twitter about, the lack of availability of what we're, this Office Touch for Windows on Windows Phone, that somehow if this thing appeared on Windows Phone today, we would just move on to the next complaint, I guess. I'm trying to imagine what these scenarios are, like what's missing on Windows Phone that you would be doing all this Office stuff with. I don't mean you, Mary Jo, or you, Leo. I mean one would.
People.
I mean, are we seriously going to get into an argument over the futility of trying to edit Office apps on a phone? I mean, this is not something that people are really going to do anyway. So, to me, I look at the platform is evolving how it's evolving. I think Microsoft is making a mistake by artificially tying the release of the next version of the touch version of Office to Windows 10. But I think Mary Jo and I both can agree there are reasons why they're doing it, and we may not agree with it fully, but we sort of understand that why they're doing it.
I think we just don't understand it yet, right? Because everybody keeps saying, yeah, there's something. Yeah, there's going to be new features in Windows 10 that we don't know yet that are going to take advantage of some new hardware that we haven't seen yet. We keep hearing that, right?
Yes.
So
here's the problem.
We don't really know what those things are. Yeah.
Last week when they announced this stuff, and this is not quite as complex as Visual Studio, but there's a lot to it, right? In other words, you'd have to really understand what Microsoft was doing with Office on mobile platforms to understand a few of these distinctions. But they basically took the Office for iPad apps and made them available on the iPhone, which is fairly incredible. Now, Mary Jo and I know, and anyone listening to this knows because we keep talking about it, that Microsoft plans to do something very similar with Windows. And that as Windows Phone and Windows merge as a platform, there will be this touch version of Office that will be the same universal app. It will run on both. And it will open up this notion of using a touch version of Office, a full featured touch version of Office on a phablet, like a Lumia 1520 or whatever. Okay, neat. So today, Windows Phone users are stuck, with like Office Mobile, which is this kind of downtrodden version of Office, whatever. It's not as full featured, but I just don't really. I mean, they could release that today, and I don't think it would make a difference.
But it's two things. It's not releasing an update to your flagship phone. It's not releasing the latest software on your.
But those are actually two different things.
But taken together, it looks as if, just to the outside world, to me, it looks as if Microsoft's kind of backing away from Windows Phone. To be honest,
I look at it and I say Microsoft has released 5 new Windows phones in the past 2 months.
But they're all $99 phones designed at the third world.
And that's where they're selling Windows Phone.
So
no, they're
the
not.
535 is, but this is sort of like PC to Mac. In this, and I know it's a simplistic comparison, but the Mac back in the day, 20 years ago, 15 years ago, 10 years ago, whatever, was the premium device, and the Windows devices were the cheap ones that went out to the masses.
Right.
And they're really following that same strategy here. I mean, we live in the United States where everyone has a kind of a luxury phone for the most part. And so we look at it, we think, why aren't they serving this market? I don't think they're ever going to be successful in that market, and they certainly don't think so. And I do agree that they need more flagship phones, but I think they're hitting the part of the market where they believe they can make a difference and, push the needle forward, and it's like, it doesn't meet my own personal needs, but I get it. It's understandable.
This was, by the way, Nokia's strategy as well.
Yeah.
I think the problem, I am like Paul. I understand. I can make the logical argument why they're doing what they're doing and why we have to wait and all that. The problem is, like Leo is saying, perception is a big part.
Yeah.
Right. And so if you're, the people who you need to keep in your corner are the people who want your flagships, right? The people who run out the day you announce a new flagship phone and they go get it.
At least in the U.S.
Right. If you lose those people and you don't have them, but you still, you're still pushing mid-range and you still have some tablets that are $100 and this and that. Okay, you're going to make up for it in volume, but you're going to lose the mind share of the people who are out there writing reviews that a lot of people base their buying decisions on. And the people who, people say to us all the time, what should I get for my window? What should I get for a phone? And right now I tell them Windows Phone. If there's no flagship Windows Phone in another 6 months, I don't know that I would tell them that anymore.
Okay, but I completely agree with you. But sort of playing devil's advocate. Last year, Microsoft released a slew of flagship phones, and none of them sold well. None of them, not even one.
I know.
And if you look at Windows Phone usage, the last flagship phone that ever achieved any volume of usage was released 2.5 years ago, the Lumia 920. They have not released an expensive phone that's ever sold well since then, not once. So you're right. And I yes, I feel the same way. I mean, I will say, for whatever it's worth, I'm, having evaluated a few of these phones, I'm using a fairly low, a crazy low end phone in some ways, the Lumia 735 as my daily phone. I love it. And I don't do that out of a sense of like self-sacrifice or something like, well, I have to use something that they made and I have to use one of the newer ones. So I'll just kind of get by with it. I actually really, really like this phone a lot. I prefer it. I use it because it's my choice. I have probably 27 phones sitting here. I could use anything I want.
And there's no reason I need the highest end phone or the highest end PC or whatever, but it just feels like sometimes you want to have something to brag about, right? You want to say, hey, look at this, right?
Sure.
I don't know. I know it's not.
I do think they need an aspirational device. I do think they need a Surface Pro 3 type thing for phone. That even if they take a loss on it, even if no one really buys it, I agree with all that stuff. But I mean, ultimately, they have to go where the market is, and I think that market is that low part of the market, the $0 Windows licensing that's opening us up to all kinds of new devices and device types, and this is the strategy. I I don't know what to say. I mean, I wish they updated the 1020. I'd love to have a quad-core Snapdragon 800 1020 with a 5-inch screen. I would love that.
You're not going to believe what just came across right now.
Okay.
Listener Eric Chu says, did you see the story on Windows Central? Verizon Lumia Cyan update now under development, no longer be out.
So I
Speaking of this
I added that to the link.
But Microsoft is at the mercy of Verizon. You can't blame Microsoft for that.
I know. I don't blame them. But it's another example of like, when somebody says to me, hey, I'm on Verizon. What do you think I should get as a phone?
Mm-hmm.
And
I think you should switch carriers.
Then, okay. And what if you're stuck on Verizon? And right now, what do you say to people? Well, you have the icon, but we don't even have Windows Phone 8.1 that came out months ago.
You could switch carriers, or you could switch to an Android.
Oh, by the way,
iOS
Microsoft could in
device.
fact do something about this. And the thing that Microsoft could do about this is release Lumia firmware updates as part of the developer preview program. So if you're in the developer preview program, which is free, you can get the latest version of Windows Phone. And if they added the firmware, you would be completely up to date.
Do you think they will?
I mean, yeah, I do.
You do?
Yep. I think it's crazy they haven't done this already.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, they could announce this in April at Build or something, and everyone will get really excited. But you know what? They should have done it in September. This should already be in place. Yeah. It's no surprise. The Verizon thing stinks because those guys said they were going to do it.
I know.
The reason this is such a story is because Verizon was testing this to release it. And now it's
back to the drawing board. Yeah. But Paul, okay, if somebody said to you today, like say some.
Don't ask me this question.
What? Okay, Paul, should I buy, what Windows PC should I buy, or should I just not buy a Windows PC right now? Like what would you say? If I was going to say to you this holiday, I want to buy a device, a mobile device for someone in my family, and they're fairly computer literate, what would you tell me to buy?
Well, this is like saying, I'm going to visit the city you live in. Where should I go? Give me one thing. I mean, you can't yet. You start asking questions. Do you care about museums and culture? Do you want to go to a show? Do you, I mean, and
but would
PCs
you recommend Windows?
Like what's that?
Would you recommend Windows right now?
Yeah, I would.
I'm having trouble telling people.
Well, for example, if you want to buy, like, let's say you're in the market for a Chromebook because you want something that's simple and cheap and all that kind of stuff. I would say, there's an HP Stream 11, there's an HP Stream 13, there's a bunch of these devices that aren't just inexpensive, they're kind of awesome. And for whatever it's worth, even if all you do is run Chrome web apps on it, it actually runs Chrome better than a Chromebook. So there are major advantages to doing that. The one area where I can't recommend Windows actually is tablets, pure tablets, like a mini tablet. As a consumption device, Windows falls short because of the ecosystem. I verify this every time I review a device. And so I got an HP Stream 7, which is a 7-inch tablet, in last night. One of the first things I did was run some games to see if it could handle them, and it did. Look at some of the built-in apps. How does the text look? All that. Okay, not too bad. And then I put Amazon Kindle on there, and I'm reminded of how abysmal that experience is, because the Kindle app is a joke on Windows, and it's wonderful on Android, and it's wonderful on iOS. And what I mean by that, aside from just various features, is that if all you want to do is read plain text books, Windows can handle that. But if your book is in any way interactive, or if it's a graphic novel, or if you want to read periodicals, you have to run one of the other mobile apps. You can't do them on Windows. You can't do them on Windows Phone either, by the way. That's a huge problem. And I know that's just one app, but from sort of a consumption experience, that's where Windows falls flat.
Yeah.
You know,
I want to just say for the record, right now I'm still sticking with Windows and Windows Phone, and the reason is I don't have another platform for a PC, and I prefer a full form factor PC that I want. I don't want Apple. I know I don't want, for a variety of reasons. But I am starting to kind of think, like, have in the back of my mind, okay, I'm gonna wait until early next year and see what they say about Windows 10 when they announce the consumer preview, and what they say about Windows Phone 10. And if there are no really great devices in the next few months after that make me feel like, there's something I want.
But what would you do?
I would probably go to Android on a phone. That's on a phone, probably where I'd go.
Okay. Yep. But, you know, one of the advantages of what Microsoft's doing in mobile is that you can have what amounts to a Microsoft Android phone or a Microsoft iPhone. I mean, you can load that thing up with Outlook.com and OneDrive and Skype and yada, yada, yada. And you've got the whole stack there. And
it's like you're using a Windows phone.
Office is actually better on those phones.
I know, right? So, yeah, totally.
Yeah. So.
Yep. So
now the computer's a bigger problem.
It is.
And tablets are a problem. And to me, I mean, for me personally, the PC is not an issue because I prefer the PC. I prefer Office on the PC to any other platform by far. I'm in that all the time. Visual Studio's there. All the applications I want to run are there. That's fine. I mean, there's a wellspring of choices and devices, and that's kind of an interesting conversation. But you'd even buy a Mac and run Windows if you wanted to, I guess. The tablets are tough.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they recover from that one. You know, there's an interesting category of devices you only see on the PC side, like these 2-in-1s or hybrid PCs, whatever you want to call them.
Yeah.
That I think are fascinating, and I think are the future of the Ultrabook or the laptop or whatever. But, you know, where that kind of device falls apart is when you pop off the tablet screen and you're like, there's nothing here. You know, it's not very interesting. Yeah. It's too bad.
Yeah. I know. The mobile story for Windows, they have to have one, number one, which they're trying to with Windows 10, right? They're trying to have the unified Windows story. And that is something I'm really interested in. I want that unified story. I want to have apps that are the same on my phone and my PC. Yeah. Like, that is something I think is a great goal and all. The problem is just the wait period right now, because we're in this, like, the next 6 months, it's going to be like, okay, keep waiting, right?
Yeah.
And we're going to see in that meantime, like, Microsoft roll out Office on Android, and we're going to see more apps coming to iPhone from Microsoft and more apps coming to iPads, and it's going to be like, hey, what about us? You know?
Well, okay. I mean, one thing we didn't really touch on, I kind of skirted by this issue, but one of the actual real world issues with not having a nice flagship on Windows Phone is that we are in the upgrade cycle now for the people that did buy their Lumia to 920, and there's nothing for those guys. That's a dumb mistake on Microsoft's part. At the very least, AT&T and GSM carriers should all be selling like a 930 type phone in the United States and elsewhere, and we don't have that here. But, you know, I don't know. The other thing about all this device stuff is, you know, long before Windows 10 was known to be what it is, I mean, I had written an editorial where I originally called it, you know, right tool for the job or something, and then the SEO guys got a hold of it and changed it into something else. I don't remember what the name of it is now, but where I basically said, you know, the way these devices are going, where they're so thin and light and easy to carry around, it's really not a big deal to carry, if you're going on a road trip like we do, to carry a thin and light Ultrabook like the one that you have, to carry an iPad-style tablet, whatever that might be. It could be an Android device. And then your smartphone. You know, you don't have to have one device that does everything, which some people are trying to, you know, bend to their will. But I mean, it's not actually horrible. I mean, if it works out so that you have an Android phone and maybe an Android tablet, but you're using a Windows laptop to get work done, it's not such a bad system. I mean, the problem for Microsoft is maybe Google improves Android, maybe Google improves Chrome OS. And the next time you come around to upgrading your laptop, then you say, yeah, I don't really need any of the Microsoft stuff anymore. Yeah. And that's the kind of the broader issue for the platform. Yeah.
Yep.
Let's take a break. When we come back, more. In fact, there's some Windows 10 news.
Yes, there is.
Yes, there is. But first, I'd like to tell you a little secret. Except if you've been listening to the show, it's not really a secret. You've been telling you about this for months now. Citrix ShareFile. I no longer send email attachments. You shouldn't either. And there's no secret. I've been saying email, don't open attachments for literally for years. Emails are dangerous. It's not just malware. It's phishing scams. The whole thing is a bad idea. But, of course, the first thing people in business say is, but we need to send attachments. That's how we do business. ShareFile solves this. Instead of sending an email attachment with the security risks involved, the bounce back risks, especially with large files that we're sending these days, the issue of privacy because it's going through public servers. It's like sending a postcard to send an email attachment. Citrix ShareFile solves all that by sending a secure link. So think of Citrix ShareFile as kind of a cloud solution. I have a ShareFile folder on my desktop actually it's not on my desktop. And the nice thing about ShareFile, you can have it be any one or more arbitrary folders that are your ShareFile folders. The ShareFile sync tool will sync that with the cloud. So I have folders for the radio network, the local station, my own personal stuff, photos and so forth. And anything I put in those folders is automatically synchronized with the ShareFile cloud. Then I can go to my ShareFile interface and, in effect, send those attachments just by sending a secure link. And this has so many advantages. First of all, I totally control that file. I could password protect it if I want. I can keep people from opening it unless they fill in their email or not. I can make it so easy that, and you certainly don't have to have a ShareFile account to receive a file from me. Plus, the page they go to has my branding on it. It says exactly what the file is. It'll zip the files up. If there are multiple files, it says what the zip file is, the size of it. I could say how many times they can download it, for how long. It's HIPAA compliant. It's compliant with regulations in a bunch of different industries. ShareFile is just a great solution. No more bounce backs. No more file size restrictions. Stuff is secure. It's HIPAA compliant. That should tell you everything. I just love it. I want you to try it free for 30 days. When you visit sharefile.com, you'll see at the top of the page a link that says podcast listeners. Click that link. It's let me show you here so you can see it for those of you watching on video. It's way up at the top there. It says podcast listeners. Click that and put in the offer code Windows. That way Paul and Mary Jo get credit. You could try this for 30 days free. It's great for any business. Do choose your industry because they can customize it for pretty much any industry. And then get the 30-day free trial. Show your boss. I think your clients will love it. If you are sending email attachments, you need to stop right now and go to ShareFile. No wonder 99% of the Fortune 500 use ShareFile. 99%. Use ShareFile. ShareFile.com. Click the microphone at the very top. Use the offer code Windows. And Paul and Mary Jo will thank you, as will I. Citrix ShareFile, a really great solution. Windows 10 update went out. An update went out today, right? Or yesterday?
Just a few minutes ago.
Just a few minutes ago.
Yep.
Wow.
I'm updating now, Leo, so.
Yeah.
Well, if anything goes wrong, we'll know who to blame. 9879.
9879, which there were some leaks about over this past weekend, but this is the build that Microsoft is rolling out now. If you're a Windows 10 tester and you have the technical preview, you can get that build now. What's in
new?
there?
Yeah, what's new?
Let's see.
There is a ton of stuff in here.
There is a ton of stuff. Yeah, it's not one or two little features. So one thing is you can now hide the search and task view buttons on the taskbar by right-clicking on the bar, because I know that was annoying some people.
By the way, that was I believe was the #1 request.
Was it really? Wow.
I think so.
They have that page, right, where you could see what most people are asking for.
Yep.
That's so
what
smart.
else?
That's good marketing.
Yeah. The native MKV file support is there. That was
Jeez, wow.
All you pirates will be pretty damn happy
Going
about that.
right deep into the well.
Next time you BitTorrent, you don't have to worry about converting that MK. Really, seriously, this is the Matryoshka format. It's a wrapper that, as far as I know, is pretty much used exclusively by pirated video.
Well, it's in there now, so go get your Windows 10, pirates. What else? The new touchpad gestures, the 3-finger gestures that Joe Belfiore showed off at TechEd Barcelona, are in there now, as is the Snap Assist technology, which helps you if you want to snap multiple apps across multiple monitors. That's in there. What else, Paul? We're looking at the list.
Updates to OneDrive. So if you are familiar with the way that OneDrive works in Windows 8.1, which I've always kind of held up as the best way to do it, is basically you could have hundreds of gigabytes, terabytes now, whatever, of data up on OneDrive. But when you sync it to your PC, it doesn't bring down all the actual files. It has placeholder files. And to the file system and to applications, those placeholder files look like real files, so they work fine. I mean, obviously, you would have to download them before they could open, but you can, open them in a file, like a photo viewer if they're photos, or open them in Word if they're Word docs, and so forth. And so, I guess the problem was a lot of people didn't quite understand how what this kind of differentiation. And so, I'm just kind of reading this now because I don't have the build to see this, but basically, it looks like they've improved the file sync, so it's more, faster, more reliable, yada, yada, yada. But now it's going to use selective sync by default. And it says this means you choose what you want synced to your PC, and it will be. What you see is really there, and you don't need to worry about downloading it. You can choose to have all of your OneDrive files synced to your PCs, or just select the ones that you want. That doesn't seem all that different from Windows 8.1. I need to see what this means. I don't know. Well, they've also gotten rid of that weird little dot menu in the Windows, and so it was really hard to find full screen mode or the charms, and so they've added a hamburger menu there, which I guess will be just more natural for people. They detuned the animations, which were really annoying in the last build. Internet Explorer.
Stuff, right?
What's that?
IE stuff. New interoperability-focused edge rendering engine. I don't know anything about that at all.
Okay.
There's a blog post. IE's new edge rendering engine.
And they added dialogues, too. This is kind of neat. So in Windows 8 and 8.1, dialogues were actually full-screen notifications. It's kind of a weird thing. It was like a big strip that would go across the middle of the screen. And so in Windows 10 now, in this new build, those previous full screen notifications are now actual dialogues, and they look like the full screen notifications used to look, except now they're little, they're smaller in their windows, and so kind of more consistent with the way we think of as dialogues, and traditionally in Windows.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So I think that's actually most of it. I'm really confused now by the OneDrive thing, though. What's the difference?
Well, whatever they do to make syncing better in OneDrive, especially if it's for OneDrive for business, if it helps anybody who's using OneDrive for business too, that will be very welcome, because wow, I get so many, you probably get way more than me too, OneDrive sync questions like, how do I do this?
Well, so I've actually spent a good part of the past 10 days trying to blow as much content into OneDrive as I can, and I've been trying different ways. And it's actually fairly difficult. And I got to say, the biggest issue is like the sync type issues. And so you run into these kinds of problems that like people who don't have, say, servers or home servers probably don't see very often, but like file path, file name length problems. For example, if you're on my desktop computer, my OneDrive folder is actually in the root of D. And so when I sync a bunch of junk from my server over to that, it's a shorter path because it's D : OneDrive, whatever. But on like my Surface Pro 3, when I try to connect to OneDrive from that computer, the path is now C : /users /Paul /OneDrive. And so you've got that additional set of characters. And that means all of a sudden a bunch of that stuff that I pumped up to OneDrive is not going to sync because the path is too long. And that's something I don't think most users these days would ever think about, but it's actually kind of a weird problem. And so you have to go back and fix all that stuff. Point being, now that they're making basically unlimited storage available to people, they really need to make this thing work. And I suspect that this is a step in that direction. But I'm really confused how this is different. I don't...
You'll have to tell us next week.
I know. There is an option, by the way, in the dialog. It says, let me use OneDrive to fetch any of my files on the PC, which is a feature they've had in OneDrive for a while, but I don't know that that was available. I thought they got rid of that on newer.
I thought they did too. I thought that was phased out.
So it looks like maybe it's coming back.
Or something they didn't carry over from whatever was the precursors.
It also has an option called use Office to sync files faster and work on files with other people at the same time. And this is a problem actually with talking about Windows not getting things first. You know, if you have users on an iPad using Office, like Word, you can collaborate in real time. And it's actually harder to do that on the desktop clients because those, you know, it doesn't have that kind of background save sync thing that's quite as sophisticated. And it looks like they're adding that to Windows now as well. And you can also unlink OneDrive. Which actually a certain segment of the population would probably enjoy. So
yes.
Yeah, this is like a fog of war thing, Leo. Sorry, this is just happening now, so it's kind of
that's fine. This is I'm enjoying it.
It's great. We get to have it before during Windows
analysis,
Weekly, instead of tomorrow.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, that's true.
Exactly.
Look on the bright side. Someone called me
Joe.
Debbie Downer. Someone called me Debbie Downer today because of my post. So
you're Debbie Honest. How about that?
Well,
how about that, huh?
Yes, actually, that's fair. Yes. No, normally Mary Jo is way more positive than I am.
I know you're the king of downers. Paul Thurrott is bad. Just
my wife called me Rancy McRancelot today.
Rancy McRancelot. Really? Your wife said that?
Yeah.
I call you Eeyore.
You know what, Paul? There's a kernel of truth in that, but I think Paul is fundamentally at his core an optimist.
He is. He's a fan, a Windows fan guy.
Yeah,
sure.
I think he's bringing you down, Mary Jo. That's the problem.
Wow.
Not true. Not true.
He'll talk you down.
All I know is she threw a grenade and then ran away.
Yeah.
And I was like, what was that sound?
What? Hello?
She was like, where are you, Foley?
She took off for the day.
So I see the very first, well, we had a review yesterday of the 830, which I think was the last Lumia phone with the Nokia branding, and I see the very first phone without the Nokia branding came out yesterday as well. The 535. Do you have one?
What's that?
You don't have it yet?
I don't have it yet, no. My initial reaction to this was, why do we need another low-end phone, right? Which I think which kind of cuts to what Mary Jo was saying earlier. But when you look at it, and when you look at the markets that it's targeting, and when you look at how it compares to, say, the Lumia 530, which is a piece of junk, or the Lumia 630, 635, which is actually a wonderful phone, this is an incredibly low-priced offering that actually hits at that kind of sweet spot where I was talking about going after the masses with something that's super inexpensive, but it's not cheap. I haven't seen one, but I mean, based on just the specs and what I sort of understand about it and my prior knowledge of other Lumias, it kind of cuts to that good value part of the market. Like, it's not just inexpensive and cheap. It also seems to be a really good value. And so it has a 5-inch screen. It's got kind of a curious resolution, like QHD, Quarter HD, 960 by 540, I think it is. But a gigabyte of RAM. It's got 8 gigs of onboard storage, which isn't great, but microSD expands it nicely, and that works great on the Lumia 735 that I'm using. Replaceable colored covers. They're bringing back the cyan color, which I think a lot of Lumia guys will love. And they have like a flip case kind of a cover. Instead of just replacing the back, you can replace it with a flip case. It will protect the screen as well. Selfie camera on the front, fixed focus, 5-megapixel camera front and rear. So nothing special in the back, but serviceable. But it's basic. It's 110 euros. 110 euros, if they were to sell that in the United States, and I don't think they will, but that would be about $100 or 110 euro. Usually it's kind of $1 to euro, not because the euro is worth as much of $1, but because of the way things are priced in Europe versus the United States. And so that tells me that phone's worth would sell typically off contract here about $110. And that's a crazy low price. That's lower than the 635, although you can get the 635 lower than that on sale or whatever. And it's more expensive than the 530, but the 530 is, like I said, is a piece of junk. And so, I don't know. If I were running this business, I would get rid of the 530, and I would never let anyone see a phone that terrible. And I would make this the entry level. This is a really nice phone for the money, is what it seems like, having not seen it. But
we don't know. Is it ever going to come to the U.S.? We don't know either, right?
I don't think so. It's. I guess it's possible. I mean, the 735 is here or will be here. Anything's possible. Who knows? It might show up on Cricket or something, but it looks like a decent. Looks like a decent device. Yeah. I just think they have too many of these things.
It's a little confusing to the outsider.
Yeah, and there isn't a logical progression in model numbers, which I think confuses people as well, and certainly confuses me. So yeah, but
Lync is no more. It's now Skype for Business. Yep, that made sense. One of the two was going to win.
I've been talking to these guys forever about this stuff. You know, it will be 2 years in February that they announced that Lync was brought into the Skype business. It didn't go into Office, remember, and that was the telegraphing of how this thing was going to go down. I mean, what I said to them at the time was simply this, and I've actually repeated it. In fact, they joke about this every time I see Lync, the Lync guys, Giovanni and those guys, is, Paul, we know you hate Skype. You make that very clear. But please understand that all of the good stuff about Lync continues and will underpin this stuff, and hopefully they can improve Skype in the process. And so what we're going to get is a thing that looks like Skype, but is in fact Lync. And you know what? I don't have a problem with that. I think that's fine.
Yeah, so it is mostly a name change. We should point out that
you still need a Lync server and all of that stuff. It's not.
Yeah, it still runs on the Lync backbone. Yeah. They're taking some of the icons from Skype and some of the UI elements from Skype and bringing them to Lync. So it's mostly rebranding, a few kind of tweaks feature wise, and they did say next year that in the first part of 2015, there's going to be a brand new version of Skype for Business Server, which was Lync Server. And the new Skype for Business bits will roll into Office 365. And there'll also be a Skype for Business client. So all of those things are going to come in the first half of the year, which is interesting because the other Office servers like Exchange, the next Exchange, and SharePoint are the second half of the year. So like Paul said, Skype and Lync sit separate, and they're on their own timetable. The rest of Office servers are in a different group on a different timetable. Just to keep it real simple.
Okay.
I wonder if we'll be able to use this client instead of the consumer Skype client.
I know. I wondered that too.
It will interoperate. I mean, I wonder if day to day that would actually make sense.
For us on the show, you mean in general, or?
Yeah, we looked at it, but I think we have to pay for a server.
Well, right. So in other words, I have Office 365, so I would have access to this. I wonder if just me running this on the client.
Oh, well, I'm
if
only
it would matter, if it would make a difference. I'm not really sure.
Yeah, I'm not either.
Yeah, it's hard to say right now.
We'll get our IT guru Russell on it. Maybe we should be using Lync. Let's dog food it. What do you say?
Hey, what could go wrong? Nothing.
I like how you're thinking, Leo.
I believe in dog fooding. Sway. Sway is their new kind of presentation thing.
Yep. Yeah. Sway is a brand new member of the Office family. First one in a really long time.
Oh, really? Oh, okay. So it's part of Office.
Huh? It is part of Office. It's an app that's kind of defies categorization. It falls somewhere between Word and PowerPoint. It's a presentation app that also lets you aggregate content and design it. It automatically helps you design it. I got to interview Chris Prattley, who runs the Sway team, and it was very interesting.
Chris Prattley runs the Sway team?
He does. He does now.
That explains a lot. I didn't know that.
He used to run. I don't know if he still runs OneNote. He did run OneNote at one point. He also ran Office Labs for a number of years, and he told me about how they thought about designing Sway. They've been working on it for 2 years. They have some number of developers under 100. He wouldn't tell me exactly how many. And the idea was they wanted to come up with this app that made it easier for people who don't have time to make things look good, to make them look good. So they have this whole engine inside where you can just say, here's some pictures, here's some text I came up with, hit a button, design it for me, make it look good. That's what Sway does. It's in very limited preview still. It's kind of hard to get an invitation to it at this point. But it definitely shows you where Microsoft's head is at in terms of how they define the word productivity. Because, you know, they're calling themselves a productivity and a platforms company these days. So when we hear productivity right now, we think boring apps like Excel and SharePoint and PowerPoint. I love them all. They're all my children. But but yeah, Sway is kind of the new way they think about productivity. So they want to have these apps in the future that blur the line between work and play and home and office. They want to make it something that is more fun to use and doesn't have such a staid and boring UI. Those were the goals they went in with on developing Sway. And I think it's interesting to remember those as they start coming out with more apps, because I think there will be more Office apps in the future. I don't know what they'll be, but those are kind of the guidelines they have now in thinking about these things. It's kind of interesting. Interesting story about how they did it, what they were hoping to achieve. And, you know, just like with Windows, by the way, they're letting users give their feedback and they're actually incorporating it into the product. So if you get to use Sway, the preview, and you say, hey, Microsoft, you know what would be really awesome if I could do this? They're actually going to take that into consideration. And if there's enough feedback that people want that, they're going to add that in. Not just come up with a product and say, hey, here it is. What a concept.
And it's not just Sway, it's Clutter. Doesn't Clutter and Sway, I can't think if it sounds like a rock band or a law firm. Clutter and Sway.
I think a law firm.
Clutter and Sway.
That's good.
What is Clutter?
That's Paul. Paul, you're all about clutter.
I am Clutter.
The king of clutter. Tell us about it.
Well, it's just it's funny. I don't understand why the consumer and business versions of their products have like slightly different things. But Clutter is a feature of the Outlook web app that they announced back in March, I want to say, at the Exchange conference. And now they've finally gotten it right. It uses machine learning as part of the Office Graph functionality they have up on the server to examine your email and to examine your behaviors over time with regards to email, to determine which emails are important and which aren't. You know, it's the type of thing we're seeing a lot of, email providers working on these days. And so you have to enable it, which I've done in my Outlook, my Office 365 account. And when you do, it creates a clutter folder, and it basically pulls all the clutter out and puts it in there, and it leaves the important stuff, so that's what you have to deal with. One of the questions I had about this, and people that were asking me this on Twitter as well, was whether this impacts the client. And so if you're using Outlook, the Outlook 2013 client on your PC, does it even make sense to enable this? Because Office or Outlook 2013 was written a couple of years ago and it doesn't know about Clutter. But actually, I was told by Microsoft it does work, and that on the server, it will respect the fact that you're moving stuff into the Clutter folder or out of it. And so it will use that to learn, just like it does in the web client. So you don't actually have to use the web client. And then as far as my own experience with it, I don't really get a lot of mail through my Office 365 account. And I'm not going to give you the address because I don't want to, but it's interesting to watch. And it's a little different from, it's obviously different from junk mail, but it's also a little different from features like Sweep, like we see in Outlook.com, which are sort of similar, but not quite. What I'd like to see Microsoft really do, and this is true of a lot of things, but I would just say Office 365 in particular, is make this kind of stuff consistent between the work and consumer products where it makes sense. Something like Clutter absolutely makes sense in Outlook.com, and I would just like to see that be consistent. I'd like it to be part of the mobile and client UI wherever you are. For example, when they added a archiving capability to Outlook.com sometime in the past year. There's no archive button in a mobile client for Outlook.com, and that's stupid. Like, that should be there like it is in Gmail. Clutter should be there. So I don't know. It sounds a little bit like, the first step to Skynet. It's like machine learning, like the machines are in the cloud and they're learning. how you work and stuff. And that's weird.
Should I be afraid? Should I be afraid?
Yeah, not yet. Not yet. Eventually, I sort of imagine I'm going to move an email into Clutter, and it's going to say it's just going to push it back and say, no, Paul, that's not Clutter. And I guess now the machine knows more than I do. So
yeah,
we'll see.
I feel like Clutter is going to clutter things up in my inbox, actually, because I just, when I get mail, I immediately read it and then I'm like delete or file it in one of my folders. I don't really want to have another
I would imagine this is true for you as well. Unfortunately, I feel like I am not a good test case for this kind of stuff because I don't interact with people normally. I mean, I do in some cases with my wife or friends or whatever. But then I get email from readers, and that kind of email might be seen as spam to most people or whatever. And
yeah, we're in an unusual situation. We get a lot of unsolicited email that's not spam.
Yeah, it kind of stinks. And so for Office 365, in my case, actually, because I don't use it for work-related things, I don't get that kind of email, so maybe it's not such a bad test. But I also don't get a lot of email there, so it makes it a little harder. Yeah, it's kind of like the problem I have on Skype. Skype signs me out a lot because I'm signed in on too many mobile devices. I find it odd that Microsoft didn't have a test case for people who have 27 phones all signed into Skype at the same time, but apparently they don't. And those kinds of scenarios make testing these things difficult for me sometimes. So it seems like a good idea. I just think it should be everywhere. That's all. Yeah. I think it probably will be over time.
Yeah, it's a lab thing. It's in the labs, man.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you go back and look at their announcement from March, what they basically said was, we intend to release this, but we just don't know when. I mean, I think, it's because we're dealing with artificial intelligence, and we don't,
only
it's trying to outsmart us, and we just want to release this feature,
Yes.
So, yeah, there is some kind of really forward-leaning aspect to this.
Is it available to everybody now?
Yeah, if you have a business version of Office 365, you can just go in and enable it. It's available.
It's in the settings.
Yep.
Yeah. It's starting to roll out, right? Isn't it like first release? People get it now, and then.
Oh yeah. Sorry. She's right. I'm on first release, of course. Yes, and so as an organization, you could restrict this from being available to your users. Yes, if you were that kind of
jerk.
Jerk. Typical IT jerk.
Exactly.
Would it be in the reading email set? Where would it be?
Actually, my article has the location.
Yeah, I'll go to that.
If you're not in first, if you're not in first release, so you're not going to see it yet.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's the gear option, the gear icon, which is like settings, and then options, and then under mail, there's a new option called Clutter.
Got it.
And you just enable it and save it, and then you'll see a new folder. Called Clutter.
Very exciting. It's Clutter. And it's really should be.
Which, by the way, shouldn't it be called declutter?
Declutter, right? Yeah.
Don't you're not cluttering. You're decluttering.
I'm going to enable Clutter on my inbox.
No, you want to put your clutter in the Clutter folder, though.
Yeah, it is. It does contain Clutter. Yeah.
I actually like this idea. Google's doing a little bit of this with Gmail and their new inbox app.
Google tried to do like a category-based thing.
Stole the sweep idea.
Yeah. These are all good ideas. I mean, I'm a little suspicious of any Microsoft service or feature that tries to outthink me. It's like autocomplete is a little bit like this. It's the type of thing Mary Jo and I talk about where we try to write hoppy, and the keyboard in Windows Phone changes it to hippie every time, which drives me crazy.
It should learn that word in my dictionary.
I agree. It seems like you keep typing hoppy. I'm gonna go with hoppy when you type that.
The other day I typed fuggles, which is a kind of hop, and it came out giggles. I'm like, drinking a beer with giggles hops, yay.
Hey, for years when I typed my name into Word for the first time, on a new install, it would change my last name from Thurrott to Thrust.
Which is completely appropriate.
Yeah.
I would like to know, where can I buy the Microsoft Work and Play bundle?
Yes.
I bet you would one.
There it is. There's the question right there. Where can I buy?
Leo, it's right there on that incredibly easy to find webpage on the Microsoft Store site.
What the hell is the Work and Play bundle? And who the hell would want it?
Actually, I think a lot of people want it, but they're very clearly only test marketing it. and this is freaking people out. So, for example, these are all online services essentially, which you can only buy by walking into a store.
So Office 365 Home, Skype Unlimited World Plus Wi-Fi, Xbox Live Gold, and Xbox Music Pass. So I take it this is a year subscription to those services?
That's correct, right?
And
how
much? $199?
Yeah, $200. You know, Office 365 Home is $99 by itself.
Yeah.
For 5 people, remember, and 5 people each get 5 installs of full Office. They get Office on tablets. They get unlimited OneDrive storage and all that kind of stuff. That's obviously the big part of it. But Xbox Live Gold is $60 a year. Xbox Music Pass is $100 a year.
This is a good deal.
The black sheep here. It's a good deal, but it's also kind of a weird deal, right? So it's U.S. only. It's retail store only.
It's kind of an odd.
Well, I every time something comes up about Xbox Music Pass or about Xbox Live Gold, I get emails from people who say, God, I wish they would just have one service that did everything, you know?
Right.
Yeah, okay. But the problem with this one is that one of these 4 things is for a family, and the other 3 are for an individual.
Oh, so it's for one person only.
Yeah. This doesn't let you have Xbox Music Pass for 5 people.
Oh.
It doesn't let, you know what I mean? So it seems like maybe what they should have done was have it just be Office 365 personal. Maybe.
I thought it was. Now I'm looking.
Oh, maybe
back.
it is. Oh, did I screw it up?
No, you're right. You're right. I just was thinking it was that. Yeah.
Okay, good. Thank God.
It is Home. So, it's Office 365 Home.
That's odd, right? I mean,
that is very odd.
Yeah, and it's only available for a limited time. It's basically for the holiday period this year. It's only in the U.S., only in Microsoft retail stores. It's a test.
Yeah.
I think what they want to do is gauge how excited people are about this, if they are or whatever, and see how that goes.
Yeah, you know what I'd like to see? Because this bundle doesn't work for me price-wise because I don't care about Xbox Live Gold.
Oh, Mary Jo.
I want the other stuff. I know.
How could you?
I don't want the Xbox Live Gold. So if I don't want that, then the bundle is about the same price I would pay if I didn't have the bundle. So I'd have $100 for the work.
I think a lot of people too look at this and they say, okay, you know, okay, 365 Home, Xbox Live, fine. Skype Unlimited. Like, what?
I don't care about that either.
What is this?
Yeah.
You know, I think a lot of people, you know, so it's $168 worth of Skype unlimited calling, right?
Yeah.
I don't really think there's a lot of people doing that kind of thing. I mean,
it lets you call Skype number anywhere in the world for free, right? And use Skype Wi-Fi.
It lets you call landlines anywhere in the world for free.
Landlines.
Yep.
Yeah, I got this for Abby when she was in France. It was great because she could use it. She had to use a computer, but she could call home.
She could call numbers, yes.
And cell phones and home numbers, and it was awesome.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's great if you're, I think it's really great like for an international
it's a very specific need. I mean, maybe you move to a different country like your daughter did, and you have family back home, whatever.
Fantastic.
It's great.
It was $99, lasted all year. She could call us as all she wanted.
But I think the thing that's weird here is that these are 4 very different services. And I think there are a lot of people listening to the show, for example, who probably use 2 of these regularly, you know. Some that use 3. The number of people who are actually using all 4 is probably pretty small.
Right. But it's trying to get you to move to them, right? So if I bought the bundle, I'd be like, oh, let me see this Xbox Live Gold thing. Like, is there anything I want in there?
Well, now I know what your Christmas present's going to be, Mary Jo.
Call of Duty, is that on there? Can I use it somehow? Yeah, but I'd like to see them try some other bundles, and I bet they will, right? Like maybe something that has like, I don't know, what would be a good bundle? Like home and office. I don't know.
Well, the obvious bundle here is the Xbox bundle. I mean, I think they need to combine those 2 things. There should be an Xbox subscrition, you know, that's combines music with whatever else Xbox Live does these days. I mean, I've thought that for a while. Actually, I had to look this up, but my initial reaction to Skype Unlimited was, doesn't Office 365 come with some Skype? You know, and it does. It comes with, I think it was 60 minutes per month or something like that. And so...
Yeah. Yep.
This is a very specific audience, but the weirdest part is you have to go to a Microsoft store to get it.
That is weird.
I mean, all of this is online stuff.
It is.
I know.
What do they put it in a
it's
box
US
full
only.
of air?
U.S. only,
It's
too.
actually a baggie. It's like when you bring home a goldfish.
There's no disc.
No.
I know.
Nope.
It's got to be, it's basically, I'm sure, a credit card type thing with a bunch of codes on it.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know why. I'm
Very
curious.
odd.
Yep.
So Clutter and Sway, work and play. We got it all at Microsoft today.
Yeah. Well, actually, you don't get Clutter with that because Clutter's in the business version of Office
Just kidding.
365.
Just to be clear.
Just to be clear, folks, don't expect Clutter.
Mr. Thurrott, you said that Clutter was included in my work and play
that
bundle.
idiot Leo did.
Yeah.
I gotta have a snack before we go to the back of the book. Are you ready for? Is it snack time? Let's get a little.
Oh, I was eating some of this last night.
You like your NatureBox, my friend?
Yeah.
My daughter's been picking at it like a squirrel.
Yeah, no, you can with NatureBox because, and by the way, you want your kids to eat NatureBoxes because even though they taste amazing.
So I had the pecan clusters last night.
So good.
Yeah,
they won't know that it's good for
These
them.
are calorie-free, right?
No. They haven't figured that part out. This is not airy little light taste. It's real food. For one, which is great. No trans fats, no artificial colors, no artificial flavors, no high fructose corn syrup. They're all in resealable bags, so you can easily, if you say, oh, I'd love a blueberry nom nom right about now, and who wouldn't? These are mini blueberry flavored oat cookies. They're so good. You just zip open the bag. Now, I'm going to tell you how you can get these for free, by the way, so stay tuned. We open them up here. And then I eat one blueberry nom nom, and then I can just put the ooh.
I bet you can't just eat one, Leo.
My mouth. I'm not. Wow.
Leo, that's the asteroid that little ship landed on.
So the asteroid's singing. Did you know that? It's actually making music, but you can't hear it because it's a very low frequency or very high frequency. Anyway. Coffee kettle popcorn. The best of both worlds. Kettle corn with coffee caramelized coverings. Now, if you visit naturebox.com/twit, you can get a free sample. I think you pay $2. I know you pay $2 shipping and handling, so that's nothing. And you'll be able to try these. Drop the candy bar. Get away from the candy machine. No more potato chips for you. Put down the Pringles and have NatureBox. They have snacks for all kinds of needs and tastes. Spicy, sweet, savory. You can find snacks with no added sugar. You can find snacks without gluten if that's what you're looking for. Lemon pucker pistachios. Strawberry Greek yogurt. No, strawberry Greek yogurt pretzels. Mango orange fruit chews. I've got here the Big Island pineapple. These solid gold. They're the best dried pineapple you have ever had in your life. And so much better for you than going to the snack machine. For your home, for your office, NatureBox will deliver snacks to your door every single month. Get that free sample right now. naturebox.com/twit. Stay full, stay strong, start snacking smarter. naturebox.com/twit. And so good. You guys got some. I'm glad to hear you were provided with NatureBox goodies. I have one nom nom. Put the rest away.
The sriracha cashews.
Is that your favorite? Oh, you're a spicy girl. You like the spice. It's good, isn't it?
Very good.
It's kind of neat. It's a great idea. I don't know who thought this up, but thank you for thinking it up, NatureBox.
Just waiting for kale chips for Paul. I know he would like
this.
Those.
Is the, I can't remember which, is this the medium box? They have 3 different sizes, but I think this is a medium. Anyway, they're great and full of goodness. All right, now time for the back of the book, starting with Paul Thurrott's tip of the week.
Okay. I just figured out one of the other differences in this OneDrive thing. But anyway, so tip of the week is, I don't know when this happened, but I was alerted this week that Microsoft is now making a downloadable version, or I should say downloadable versions of the Windows 8.1 install media available to customers. This is a big, just on its own, this is a big deal because you may recall that Windows 8.1 was that weird release of Windows that was only made available to existing customers on Windows 8 through the Windows Store, which was a horrible experience and worked horribly for everybody, or for a lot of people. And and if you restored your computer, you did a PC reset, you went back to 8.0, and so you had to do the install again. And so now they're making this install media available, and you can use that to create install media to a USB flash drive or to an ISO file, which you can then burn to disk if you want, or you can just use that ISO file directly in a VM, which is great. But actually, there are two things that put this over the top. And when I originally wrote about this, I was positive this would not be the case because Microsoft never does this kind of thing. But two major improvements. If you have a Windows 8.0 key, meaning you bought Windows 8, you can use that key now with the Windows 8.1 installer. This has never been the case in the past. And so that's a huge improvement right there. That means you don't have to go back to 8.0 and then upgrade. You can go right to 8.1, which is really cool. And it also has all of the latest updates, meaning the major updates. Update 1 and Update 2, even though they're not calling it Update 2, are integrated into the install. So it's not the version of 8.1 that shipped last October. It's the version of 8.1 that's up to date as of this August, I guess. And so that's cool. And so you can get this. It's just from the Microsoft site. I have a little explanation for it on my website, but it's now easily obtainable. So that's a big deal. So I'm going to update the book because this is actually a big, big change. And then the software pick of the week is this is kind of an odd one because you probably think you understand what this is right up front, but it's a little different than you might expect. Is Microsoft has released a Microsoft Band Sync app for Windows and Mac. If you are familiar with Microsoft Band and the way it works and how you sync data from the band, you know that you typically have to use a mobile app. And so that's going to be an Android app, like an iPhone app, or a Windows Phone app. And those apps, oddly enough, are called the Microsoft Health app. And they do all kinds of things. They let you configure the band rather. They let you choose which tiles are there. You can look up guided workouts and download a few of them to your band. There's all this stuff you can do. The Sync app that they've released for Windows and Mac is not actually that app. In fact, it's really just designed to sync the data from your band to the cloud while you're charging it. So instead of using the included charger cable with a power adapter and plugging it in the wall, you can plug it into your computer, and while it's charging, it will sync the data. But you can't use the app to do any of the stuff you can do with the Microsoft Health app. You can't go back and look at all of your activity. You can't configure, the different features of the band, like, which workouts are on there and all that kind of stuff. So it's really kind of bare bones, but it just gives you that, for a lot of people, I think, especially if you go to work every day, you might want to just charge it at work during lunch or whatever. You plug it in, it's connected to the computer, so it's charging, but it's also, it updates over USB instead of updating over Bluetooth. And so it's obviously free.
Nice. Your software pick of the week.
That was it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Do you still like your band? Do you still love it?
Yeah, I'm going to continue with it, as I think is the way I would say it. I feel that this is an important platform, especially the health service. So actually, just the other day, I stopped using my Fitband. I don't think I need to compare the data anymore, and I'm just going to use this. In fact, the one thing I'm really looking forward to is tonight I'm going to play basketball, and for various reasons, the past 2 Wednesdays, I was busy and didn't play basketball. So I've never played basketball with this thing, but I'm going to, I've been able to look at, like, I go for walks. And so I use that as like an exercise, and I can see how my heart rate varies over the course of a walk. But what I really want to see is how it, what it's going to look like. It's going to be like a,
I think that's
I'm
cool.
sure it's going to be insane looking, but.
How does it with advanced warfare? What does it look like?
Yeah, my heart rate goes up.
No exercise, but your heart rate goes up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that alone is a little bit of exercise. The heart doesn't beat by itself, Leo.
Did you put down Call of Duty for a day yesterday to play a little bit of Halo? Actually,
you know what? I didn't. I haven't. I have not even. I launched it and I looked at the menu.
It's fun. There's a button you can press, and it'll show you the original version.
Oh, that's awesome.
And then so you can go back and forth between the new, and they really spiffed it up.
I think what I'm going to do is start with because I played the Halo Commemorative Edition, whatever it was.
That's the one. That's the oldest one I had.
I think I'm going to start with 2 because Halo 2 is the one that they remastered for the Xbox One.
This one's remastered too.
Yeah, no, I know, but I don't know that it's.
It looks pretty different.
Does it, even from the one they just released?
Yeah.
Okay.
CE does? Right. Oh, I don't know from the one they just released. It was probably the same as the one they just
I'm
released.
not 100% sure, but
it looks different from the 10-year-old.
I will.
The 10-year-old version.
There's no rush on this one. I mean, I think this is going to be.
Cortana looks hot.
Yeah. She gets progressively better looking through the series, Leo. There's been some work
forgotten because I haven't played this in 10 years. We used to play it on the Screensavers set, and I had forgotten.
Yeah.
And wow.
Yeah. I mean, the original Halo, I feel I played that game, like the single player campaign, probably a dozen times.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. It made me, I literally got seasick within 5 minutes.
Really?
Yeah.
Why is that?
I don't know. Most games, I mean, I sit and play on my Xbox One all the time. It doesn't make me queasy. Maybe I don't know. Maybe I had a bad piece of fish and I just thought it was Cortana. But
don't blame Cortana.
I was like, I turned white and I had to stop playing.
Oh wow.
This is the effect I hope to have on people who play me in multiplayer.
And you like Advanced Warfare?
Yeah.
All right.
I've got, it took a little while to get used to the vertical stuff.
Yeah.
But I am now used to it. And I sort of see the advantage of it. It's well done. And some of the maps are, but some of the maps are fantastic. So.
Mary Jo Foley. Okay. Actually, let's do Mary Jo Foley's Enterprise Pick of the Week because she's got that. And then I'm going to just give you a little alert, a security alert that we talked about yesterday on Security Now.
Okay. So my enterprise pick of the week has to do with Lync and Skype also. And I don't know if you guys remember this, but back in 2013, Microsoft said we're going to do 2 phases of integration between Lync and Skype. The first phase, they integrated things like the audio calling, instant messaging, and then adding the contacts between the two. They federated that. And they said sometime by 2014, we're going to do video federation. So we haven't heard a word about that so far. It turns out they are going to make it just under the wire. In December, they're going to update the Skype client with H.264 support so that you will be able to have video federation between Lync 2013 and Skype. So if you don't want to wait till sometime in the first half of next year to use your Lync for business with your Skype as far as being integrated from a video perspective, you'll be able to actually do that this year if you have Lync 2013. So that's my enterprise pick.
Excellent. And your code name?
Codename pick of the week. Last week, my codename pick was Project K. And in that case, it had to do with the Microsoft Fitness Band, which was called K. There's another Microsoft Project K. I mentioned that last week. And it's very fitting that we're going to make that the pick this week because the other Project K is ASP.NET 5. The K in this case stood for Katana, Katana, which I think is like a Japanese sword, isn't it? Some kind of premium
Katana,
Japanese sword.
Yeah, it is.
It's Japanese sword.
Yeah.
It's a samurai sword.
I don't know if that's the inspiration for this Katana and Project K, but ASP.NET 5, which is the new version coming next year that Microsoft's here in New York talking about today. The codename for that was Project K also. So that's my codename pick for this week.
There are only 26 letters in the alphabet. You got
to
double up sometimes.
Exactly.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, get ready. Another misspelled beer name. I think when you drink a lot of beer, your spelling just goes to hell.
This is the correct spelling, as our UK listeners will know. Adnams, A-D and A-M-S. So I don't do very many UK beer picks. I should do more because I actually like them.
It's a country full of beer.
Yes. Adnams Ghost Ship is the pick, which is, Adnams is this really great brewery from England. This particular one is a pale ale that has a little, to me at least, a little lemony taste to it. And I got to taste it when I was on my way back from Bruges. I stopped at a friend's house and he had some. And it was really good. I wish we had this in the US. I think it would be a really nice spring, summer kind of a pick for a beer. Only 4.3% or so. So you can drink a few.
Looks very refreshing.
Very refreshing.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Adnams Ghost Ship.
If you ever get to try an Adnams beer of any kind, I know I'm mispronouncing that. Adnams, I think is the real way.
Adnams.
Very, very nice beers. Very, very
Nice. Nice. And I just wanted to mention yesterday was Patch Tuesday, and we did a bit on stuff on Security Now. One of the patches is a severe critical flaw in all versions of Windows. If you're running Windows Server or you're running IIS, you must patch because it is an extremely serious flaw. Steve characterized it as kind of as bad as it gets.
Oh, wow, really?
Yeah.
Oh, so you're not referring to the Windows flaw that dates back to 1995, that one? Did you hear about
that
this?
happens all the time.
That one too. Yep.
They fixed a 19-year-old flaw in Windows this week.
This is in,
It's been remotely exploitable for at least 18 years.
Holy moly.
It literally impacts Windows 95.
This is a flaw in S channel, which is the security channel that SSL and TLS uses. And it's a fairly serious bug. So the whole Patch Tuesday, the critical patches, you might want to apply those.
It's a very big Patch Tuesday.
It's a very big. Microsoft says there are no mitigating factors and no workarounds. So you really, if you're running a server and you use SSL, you need to fix it. And if you ever visit an IIS server with SSL, you need to fix it because it can infect you as well. Just a little heads up.
Yeah.
Not in the wild as far as we know. It was a private security researcher found it, but such a serious bug that will be in the wild soon, I'm sure. Okay. Mary Jo Foley, Paul Thurrott, thank you so much. Mary Jo Foley is at allaboutmicrosoft.com. That's her ZDNet blog, and you must read it every day. It's a requirement. Paul Thurrott's blog is at the super site for Windows is at winsupersite.com. You also must read that every single day. And every single Wednesday at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern Time, 1900 UTC, you must tune in live.twit.tv so you can watch us do Windows Weekly. Now, if there's a medical emergency or something else preventing you from watching live, okay, we do make on-demand audio and video available after the fact.
That's the only excuse.
The only excuse, twit.tv/WW. It's on youtube.com/Windows Weekly. And, of course, wherever podcasts are, including the Xbox store and all those other places you can get your shows. We actually, thanks to Dmitry Lialan and another developer, I think there are 2 Windows Phone versions of the Twit application. We don't do our own Twit apps, but fortunately we have smart listeners who do on all the platforms, including Roku, so you can also watch that way. Thanks for being here, Paul. Thanks for being here, Mary Jo. We'll see you next Wednesday on Windows.
I'll be in Stockholm when I.
Oh, this is the Swedish version.
Yep.
Exciting. Bork, bork, bork. Don't say that. They don't like that. Okay. We'll see you. Bye-bye.